Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Ignacio Salazar, who is the CEO of Highfield Resources, who are an ASX-listed potash company, which focus on the construction of this flagship, low-cost, low-capex Muga Project in Spain, which is fully permitted. Ignacio has a background in economics and law and has worked in the oil and gas industry with Shell before moving over to the mining industry back in 2009. He's at the helm of Highfield Resources for the last 3 or so years. So he's going to tell us a little bit more about the company, its journey and their future, plus some other things as well. So that's welcome Ignacio to the podcast. How you doing, Ignacio?
Very good, very good. Thanks, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Rob. Thanks a lot. Glad to be here.
No worries. Appreciate your time as well. So, obviously, you've listened to the podcast, so you know how it goes. So, I just wondered if you can tell us a little bit about your career. Obviously, I mentioned you were in the oil and gas industry before moving over to the mining industry. So, I just wondered if you can give us an overview of your career, what you've been doing. Before we start asking some questions around Highfield.
By all means, yes, of course. So indeed, almost all my career in natural resources. The first big part was with Shell, with the Royal Dutch Shell Group. I started in Spain for a small period of time, but moved quickly into the upstream oil and gas. I was there with Shell in total 18 years. Happened to keep a bit of logic behind my move. I joined what is called the international staff of Shell, starting in Aberdeen in the North Sea in upstream oil and gas, and then moved to several countries in Europe and South America. That is where the logic, which I managed to have, but basically in Argentina, the UK, and London. I was as well in the headquarters, both London, The Hague, Germany, Denmark, and I think that's it. So that was for 18 years. And then I think decided to, obviously very, very happy with that experience, but decided to move into a smaller company. I was after a junior type of company, oil and gas or mining, but it happened to be a gold mining company with listed called Orosur Mining, with operations in production in Uruguay in this case, and then we develop and increase our operations in Colombia and in Chile, so all in South America. Gold listed in Toronto and in London, but very much focusing gold in South America. That was 12 years. I started as the CFO, but the last 8 years there, I was the CEO of Orosur. And as you said correctly, starting here in Highfield with in the pandemic in COVID in July 2020, so almost practically 3 years. And funny enough, all my career, almost 30 years or maybe a bit more, with more 18 plus 12 plus 3, basically in most of that outside Spain, but I come originally from Bilbao, which is very close to becomes relevant now in this company finally, is close to the project, which is based in the north of Spain, close to Bilbao, in Navarra and Aragon, the two regions close to the Pyrenees.
Yeah. Before we speak about Highfield, it seems half of your career has been in the oil and gas and half of it has been in mining. Now, what are the major differences that you see between the two industries?
Well, I mean, they are similar. Obviously, they are both natural resources. They are a key elements, the big capital spent upfront, the cycle, and how the commodity price goes up and down. So obviously, it's a lot in parallel. The oil and gas, in my mind, tends to be, well, and especially in my experience with Shell, bigger. I mean, you are dealing with bigger investments. Potentially, I mean, a lot of oil and gas, and I mentioned Aberdeen, but also in Germany and, well, in Denmark more than is offshore. So a lot is, yeah, away from from land and from communities these days more. And I think in those, I think in that sense, probably away from some of the license to operate that you may have in other places. But bigger industry, well, also oil and gas tends to be from a more operational side. I mean, I see the open pit that you have in your background. So you don't see that in oil and gas. It's just drilling a hole and then the oil and the gas coming out. Not that you need to take so much out of the ground. Leaving aside in Canada, no, the sands that probably is a mix, no, maybe something in the middle between oil and gas and mining. So technically and commercially, and maybe the size, the players in the oil and gas again typically bigger than in the mining industry, but some things in parallel and some things, yeah, that make a difference between those two sectors indeed.
Yeah. So just wondering if you can give us an overview of Highfield, and obviously you've been with the company for 3 years now. Just wondering if you can give us a snapshot of the company.
Yeah, Highfield, an ASX listed company, Australian based, but all very much is managing one project. I mean, we have some other exploration permits around this project, but very much the focus is in one operation in Spain. This is north of Spain, Navarra and Aragon. Those two, what we call autonomous communities here in Spain is the technical name, 2 regions. So it's really in the border between those two. And the project is called Muga, which in Basque means border, meaning between those two communities. No, for this is it's going to be a potash mine. We started some of the construction already. I tell you where we are right now, but basically potash MOP, I might discuss a bit later about potash fertilizer, very key, especially in Europe these days that is in deficit of potash, but a very key commodity going forward. I mean, you know, BHP, for example, has moved into potash as part of the mega trends globally that we see projects moving or companies from oil, gas, coal to lithium, potash. So in that sense, very interesting, but maybe not as well known, obviously not as well known as other mining companies, no, and mining and minerals and metals, no. So we have gone through all the permitting. So the permitting is behind us, very important. So we are shovel ready, as I like to say. We started, in fact, a bit of the preliminary work around the mine gates, yeah, because they are 2 last year. And basically, we've done a lot of progress with the financing, finalizing that, and now really ramping up the project team and the deal, the finalizing the agreements with contractors. We have been doing this work up to this point with a small group, lean and mean team of 30 people, and the construction effort is going to take us, including contractors, to 1,000. No, so about to explode in the good sense of the word in this phase from, as I said, permitting finished, financing practically done or very close to finalized, and then moving into the construction of the Muga mine, which is going to be a first phase 500,000 tons of potash, and we have the capacity to double that soon after.
Yeah. Just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about the background of your flagship Muga project.
Yes. So as I said, this is about to start construction at the end of the year. We 500,000. This is a very conventional room and pillar mining. Is this project? I mean, a lot of. I mean, in Potash, again, probably saying a couple of words, there are other SOP that use brine and other methods just to get the salts and the potash at the end of the day from the ground. In our case, it's conventional room and pillar, and we access the mineralization through 2 ramps. It's going to be an underground mine, 2 ramps of 2.5 kilometers each. So pretty standard compared to other projects. Potash projects, quite shallow mineralization. We have no aquifers on top of mineralization, so pretty easy mining, and also conventional crystallization methods to get the processing done for our potash. No, so very important, and I think the key difference with our project is that we are in the middle of the market. As I said, this is a fertilizer, and in the north of Spain, we are surrounded by farmers. In fact, our mine, we have to push aside some farming just to build the mine. And again, compared to peers, that's a big differentiator. So the project has the capacity to scale up. I mean, we are already thinking on 2 phases, but as I said, this is part of a bigger Ebro basin, strong in potash. There is, at the end of the basin, close to the Mediterranean in Barcelona, close to Barcelona, there is a mine right now of potash, and there used to be a bit more to the north of our project, close to Pamplona, moving into the Cantabric Sea. There used to be mines at the end of in the 80s, 90s. Now they are closed. No, so it's quite a basin that we could do a lot more. It is a very attractive, high volume commodity like potash. Transportation costs are key, and to be in the middle of the market drives obviously a lot of value and makes our project top quartile in terms of margins. From an ESG perspective, obviously, we've gone through all the permitting now, is top standards in the industry. We will be, just to give you an idea from the environmental point of view, and these projects you may, in Germany, there are some, in Barcelona, they leave a white mountain of salt as mineral residues. We will leave either sell the salt or basically we have the commitment to backfill all the residues as we go along during the life of the mine. And well, very attractive location strategically, even if you wish, in Europe, no, that is in deficit and used to be supplied by Russia and Belarus, no. So very important, even at that level, no.
Just want to briefly talk about obviously the potash that you're going to be producing, and also the current potash market. What's actually happening in the environment, in the potash environment at the moment?
Absolutely, yes. So potash, which is indeed probably very worthwhile discussed because it's less known than copper or gold, etc. So basically, and by the way, when in our case we are talking about MOP. Muriate of potash, which is the key potash product, let's call it that way, because it works with chloride. There is some other like the SOP that, especially in Australia, people are very familiar. Most projects in Australia are SOP, which are for crops that are sensitive to chloride. But the point here is that MOP, in our case, this is a global market of 70 million tons compared to the other one, SOP, which is 7, which is a 10th globally of our product. No, so but again, to concentrate on MOP, which is for the standard crops like corn and wheat and the normal crops that are able to tolerate chloride, and at the end of the day, the MOP has a very high potassium content. So and that's why the market is a lot bigger for MOP. But coming back to potash and MOP in particular, so basically the market is, I mean, in this commodity is a small number of countries that really dominate this market. Canada produces globally 30% of the MOP production of these 70 million tons. The Russia 20%, Belarus 19-20%. No, so the two you add then 70% is being generated from 3 countries, and indeed as well 80% of production, a big part of the 70-80 is controlled by eight companies. No, so it is a relatively organized, hopefully, market in that sense. The fundamentals of MOP, in particular potash in general, are related to a relatively easy equation. Demand is growing. I mean, simply because people we have more people in the planet that are eating more and have higher feeding demands, and on the other side, arable land is decreasing, is less and less, and both trends looks like unavoidable going forward. The only way to make that equation works and produce more with less land is to have fertilizers, which is this famous NPK, the nitrogen, phosphate, and K is potassium. No, so potassium is key to make this work in the long run. The future looks like a no-brainer. Know that the fundamentals for demand of this product are going to be strong. Now, in the case of us, as I said, it's 500,000, 1 million in a market of 70, so it's not a big player. The key, of course, is that we are not in the middle of nowhere in Canada, but that is where they are, in Russia or Belarus. We are in the middle of the market. So we are obviously, we will be a small player, but we will be in the middle of the market. So we have a niche market all around us. We can, and for such a high volume commodity like us, we can track around us 500 kilometers, we will have half of our production sold there, and the farmers need that, not only that access, but that flexibility. So extremely competitive in our area. And basically, in the case of Europe, was always, I think, a strategic project, but Europe practically half of the potash consumption. There is a mine, as I said, in Germany, as well in Spain, in Barcelona, but half of that was imported. And the most of what was imported was from Russia and Belarus, that now they are subject, especially Belarus, to sanctions by America, the US, and Europe. So obviously, from the point of view of Europe becoming a lot more aware of reliance on European, obviously critical minerals or raw materials, gas, obviously the one everybody is aware of, but potash is the second, fertilizers, potash specifically, and food in general is becoming obviously recently a lot more aware of this. But the key element of this project has always been the location in the middle of the market, and a commodity that we see with strong fundamentals going forward, and a very strong profile of Muga, of Highfield, considering where we sit in the margin curve.
Yeah. What makes Highfield Resources, or even your Muga Project, special? Obviously, you've just spoken about the locality and obviously servicing, I suppose, the local market, whether that's just Spain or even going to further parts of Europe. What else is special about your operation once it goes into operation, and the company?
Yeah, we like to always explain 3 points. I mean, the first one and the most important one is the location for this commodity, where transportation is so important, and the alternatives might come up from, if they are not coming anymore, from Belarus or Russia, which are, by the way, mines that are 1,800 kilometers inland, compared to our case that is either trucking around or taking the product to Bilbao, which is 200 kilometers, or there is another harbor here in Pasaya as well, 150 kilometers from the mine. So the logistics and the location in the middle of the market makes, I would say, the first key thing that is special in our case. The second one, I mentioned something a bit before, compared to, again, these projects in Canada, our peers in Canada or Russia, that obviously they will have, and they have bigger size and economies of scale, but typically these products are these projects or mines are a lot deeper than us. When I said we are shallow, we will be accessing mineralization 350 meters of depth, and these projects typically are 1,000 or more. And and typically, I mentioned that they typically, this sort of geology, they will have an aquifer sitting on top of the mineralization. So they will have to freeze the aquifer, build a shaft through the aquifer to access mineralization. So to build that, I mean, only to build one of these in Janssen, this project from BHP was $2 billion, the shaft. So not only the cost is very high, but after that to operate, maintain a mine through a shaft compared to the ramp, you can imagine is very different. No, I mentioned our project is Muga top quartile in terms of margins, but to build the mine in a comparable basis for this level of production costs half of what it cost in other peers, no? To some extent because of the shallow mineralization, point number 2, and finally point number 3, because compared to being in the middle of nowhere and you have to build all the logistics for the sake of the project, we are in a extremely developed area in terms of infrastructure. All the funds from the European Union in the 80s, 90s were to connect Spain to the rest of Europe, and being in the north of Spain by the Pyrenees, we have a motorway. We have a empty or very, very empty from Pamplona, where we are sitting here in the office, to which is 45 kilometers to get very close to the mine. We have the electricity substation is already there next to the mine. Water, we have a channel crossing the project itself. So it is in a very well developed area from an infrastructure perspective. On top of that, especially the several ports that we can use, and the port of Bilbao is the biggest deep water port in Spain. So very, very handy to have that at 200 kilometers or less from the mine as well. So those three, the location in the middle of the market, shallow mineralization with everything that it means, and a lot of infrastructure for a high volume commodity, that is really what you would love to have when you are looking for a project like this. Yeah.
Yes, certainly. I know you've been pretty busy since the beginning of this year. I just wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about some of the recent developments that you've experienced and gone through.
So very much up to this, and in my, almost 3 years here, that was about a very key objective for the company, was to get a fully permitted and shovel ready. As I said, that is behind us. So we don't talk too much about that anymore, hopefully, while that was the main topic of discussion. And we don't need to say that we think it's easy. We can say, well, it was, whatever it was is behind us, no, now. So that was very important. And and also the way I think we managed to get this done with a lot of support from the community. Not I wouldn't say that was always a given or a walk on the park, but it is a big tick on the box and done. And we are ready with all the permits, as I said. Now, we were working as well very much on the financing side. We secure, the project, the first phase is 440 million euros just to build the ramps and the plant. We already started a small part of the work on the preliminary works around the mine gate, because that gives us 5-6 months that we have, let's say, cover in advance. So that was important. But okay, we are about to start that big construction, and for that we need to complete, as I said, a capex of 440. We need to complete the financing. We secured, that was a long process, 320 million euros with project finance, with the 3-4, let's say, very the leading banks in this sort of financing: BNP Paribas, Natixis, ING, SocGen. So the 4, I think, very strong banks. Recently, we announced that another 2 banks, HSBC and Caja Rural Navarra, that is the regional savings bank, which provides finance to farmers, joined into the syndicate. So all of that getting very well set up. That is secure, signed, and sealed. Those 320, a bit extra, 27 million capacity to get to 27 with Macquarie in terms of equipment leasing. We got now a couple of weeks ago, closed a deal with our main shareholder, EMR, the private equity in Australia. That has been a long supporting shareholder of Highfield. We had his founder and chairman, Owen Hegarty, last week here in the office and in the project, so very glad for that. And they put another 25 million together with Tectonic, another the EMR and Tectonic together, 25 million. And we are closing a process of with a strategic investor and potentially otherwise finalize the financing in the markets. No, so a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, I think the bulk of that is ready. And okay, always is the last sprint to get to the finish line, and it's a lot of work going on there, no? But a lot more is behind us. So very, very keen. And in parallel, doing some work, as I said, I put in a big box of preparing for the construction. Hired recently as well the former president of ICL Spain. So this is this potash mine in Catalonia I was talking about, join us to be in charge of the construction of the plant, Carles Aleman, and building the team, the engineering team. As I said, we kept the team lean and mean during this period, but obviously we need to grow significantly and in a controlled manner going forward. Agreements with contractors. We announced yesterday the expropriation process, which is again lengthy, but very, very well run, I must say, that provide us access to the land. All the land that we need for the project is now in our control. So, well, a lot of work. We are ticking boxes as we move along and delivering on the way also, no? So plenty to do.
Yes, certainly. And obviously you mentioned Owen Hegarty. We had Owen on our podcast probably about 3 years ago now. So he interviewed Owen. So those that are listening, please go back and listen to Owen's podcast that we did with him. I wanted to get your take on the mining industry within Spain. Before we went live, you mentioned that you listened to Pan Global, who are building a copper mine in Spain, and obviously you're building a potash mine in Spain as well. And I suppose majority of our audience who are all around, obviously around the world, may not necessarily know Spain as a mining jurisdiction. So I just wondered if you can just give us your take on the mining industry in Spain, what it's like. Is it a bit like the UK where it's having a little bit of a resurgence? Just like to hear your views on that.
Yeah, there is quite a few projects going around and quite a big push to get new projects up and running. I mean, it has a very long tradition in Spain of mining from the Romans and before. I mean, coming from Bilbao, iron ore, coal from Bilbao during the Industrial Revolution. That, as far as I know from the history books, that was a lot going to the UK and to support that. So there is a lot of tradition. There are a lot of very positive elements in Spain. Like, I mean, salaries are still very competitive, very productivity good. Obviously, very much infrastructure also improved significantly. And well, at the end of the day, you are in Europe, no? That is obviously very high standards from an environmental perspective. Those are European standards. It's not Spain or France or whatever. We are all at the same level. And obviously, yes, population still, unfortunately, a relatively high level of unemployment, which means that you have, I'm thinking a lot of times when talking to Australian audience, it's always a lot harder to find talent and the right people to develop projects. Here, a bit better. You need to be very, very close, like I think in Spain, anywhere else, not to the politicians, to the administrations, to develop is always the possibility to, and that is, by the way, something we are doing, training and education, working with the government. We did quite a lot with what is called by the government Muga community, the name of the project, and they extended to the regions. I think we are lucky. We have, I mean, this is quite an endeavor, our project, because obviously it's not a project in the middle of a lot of other mines, and it's an extension, or this is something. There was, as I said here, or not far away, some mines, potash mines in the 90s, but right now we are starting from scratch. In that sense, took obviously a bit of time to go through the permitting, but now that that is behind us, I think it's a good opportunity during the construction to develop with the help and the support of the communities, education and promotion and training undertakings together with the government. No, so very much. People want to, we are going to be where the mineral is. It happens to be in Spain that a lot of the population is by the coast and Madrid in the middle, but things in the, I mean, that is an issue identified, that the depopulation, what is called depopulation, the areas where we are going to be are not especially poor or whatever, but they are suffering from the people like to go and live in the big cities. So the fact that we are there is a massive plus. The government has identified in this Muga community, the social baseline study, they did all the benefits of, 30-year mine life to start with, that these projects tend to be 80, 100 years. So 30 years that we have defined and announced in our feasibility study, but obviously more. So people want to find jobs, and they prefer to stay where they are, and this is a massive opportunity. Spain, maybe the only thing I add to that is that there is no Spain. There are many Spains, no, because the regional Spain is a very complex long history, good and bad. So every region, and I think people know a bit of that, and Basque and Catalonia and Madrid and Real Madrid against Barcelona, you know, all the, if nothing else, because of the football, people are very well aware that it's not the same. So as well, I think it's difficult to generalize when we talk about Spain. No, you really need to go, I think, region by region, just to understand how things really work. But so far, so good. We are, I know, obviously coming from Bilbao, know Spain well, but obviously this area better. So very important that you are credible, people understand what you are after, and the benefits of the project for the community are clear. You try to organize with the government of the communities how to channel that to everybody. And in my mind, it's clear this is a win-win for everybody, no?
Yes, certainly. I want to go, you obviously, like I mentioned, you were in the oil and gas industry with obviously Shell for like half your career. And then obviously you came into the mining industry. And from your experience, what can the mining industry actually learn from the oil and gas industry? And I suppose if we look at things like operations, a topic that always gets brought up when I speak to guests on this show, the brand and image of mining, and also sort of governance as well. So just one of those few topics there. What can the mining industry do that you've seen that the oil and gas have done successfully, whether that's more recently or even quite a few years ago? I just wondered if there's any glaring improvements our industry can make, and especially around branding and image, because that always gets brought up. So yeah, just wonder what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I mean, branding and image especially, well, I have to say, and that I am coming from, let's say, Shell, oil and gas, oil for a massive, big company, to junior mining. So part of my comments might be, is that because one is oil and gas, the other one is mining, or is that because this is a major multinational, the other one is a junior company, no, oil and gas or mining, whatever, no? So I really came up not only from one sector to another, but from one, I mean, I was always in operations and in production, not just simply an exploration company. But so in that sense, I could see every day when I was in Eurosur, the day-to-day challenges that around operation and production. Not hopefully in Highfield we will be pretty soon in construction, extremely soon, but in operation as well. No, I think well, careful about that, because oil and gas, yes, maybe in those days had the reputation always has been is a lot of discussion and challenge about oil and gas. No, difficult to say. I obviously from the Shell perspective, the brainwash almost the emphasis on safety, which I think in the mining as well, no, but it has always been extremely hard, extremely tough, and I think in mining also. I think, as I said, probably some of the elements for oil and gas, especially when you are working offshore, once again with brand and reputation. Mind you, in my days, Shell was going through the Brent Spart. I don't know if you remember that, that it was one of the platforms in the North Sea was meant to be decommissioned. And well, I think Shell was trying to get the best engineering solution of that. So this and got a big pushback from activists everywhere, especially in Germany, by all means, with nothing to do with that, but it's where the service stations, the retail service stations, the biggest network was in Europe for Shell at the time. So I think it's not only you have to do the right thing, but you have to communicate, make sure that is aligned with the communities. So it's not what you think is the best. And I have no doubt at this level, we are discussing the companies are trying to do the best, but you need to be very close to the stakeholders, and that is not necessarily oil and gas versus mining, but you really need to talk the same language. Is human nature. We are dealing with people. So it's not an engineering solution to anything. And when we think about brand and things like that, but it's people, and people, the perception of people might change significantly for not always 100% rational elements. I think that oil and gas and mining, to be honest, and maybe this is my own personal philosophy, we suffer from a bit of unfair reason that we will have to go and be where the mineralization is. And our industries, just maybe this comment helps to, I think most of us listening to this podcast that are see all the value that mining can provide. I think because other industries, and I'm thinking here in Pamplona, we have Volkswagen, no, a factory here. I think many other industries say, well, I put the factory there. It's some, I mean, in our case, 400, 500 million euros investment. You like it? No. You don't like it? Don't worry, I go to another place. In mining or in oil and gas, you don't go to another place. I think that should be a reason for communities to feel very happy, very grateful, but at the same time, well, very, very much is, as I said, win-win. But in some cases, not well, people might move from, oh, that's very nice, no, to, oh, just a minute, how you need to be careful, be very close. So I think what is and can be very positive economic activity and creating a lot of value for everybody, it doesn't turn around, no. But I think it's no magic solution, or nothing one industry does better than another. It's more about individuals and companies that are able to run that properly. And in my mind, is obviously to do things properly. I think that I take in as a given, but also the capacity to do it in a way that the communities and the administration and everybody is aligned with the outcome of what you are doing.
Yeah. And lastly, and concluding, what's the outlook for Highfield Resources for the remainder of this year going into next year?
So as I said, I basically very much as permitting is behind us. A lot of the financing is already signed and secure. We should finalize the rest, what is pending, while we build the team and prepare the contracts with the contractors and prepare all the preparation for construction, which cannot be taken for granted at all is getting ready. The company is going, after several years of concentrating on permitting financing, is just about to move to I didn't say 2.5 years of construction. That is the plan for the construction. And that is the emphasis is going to move to, well, I think it's been always about delivery, but it is going to move, has been, at least for my 3 years here, delivery on the permitting and the financing, etc., but about delivery, ruthless delivery on the construction in terms of budget and in terms of time and in terms of getting this right. So very much looking forward to that as well, because it's a very obviously nice task to build really a mine when you see all the value, amazing value that this project is going to create for stakeholders and for shareholders and for everybody involved.
Yeah, Ignacio, really appreciate your time in telling us about Highfield Resources and what you've been doing, and obviously your views with the oil and gas industry, and obviously the mining industry, and tell us a little bit about Spain as a mining jurisdiction. So I really appreciate your time. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, if they want to follow your story, how can they go about doing that? What social media platforms are you on?
No, we are, I mean, the best, obviously we have our Highfield website and GeoCali in Spain, but very much the Highfield website. We are very, nowadays everybody is on all sorts of social media, and we are doing quite a bit of, the best thing is to be registered in the website, because we do every now and then email blasts, not only with the press releases, obviously, but also with some of these media and things related to the company.
Yeah. Great. Well, wish you all for the best for the remainder of this year, going into next year. Perhaps you can come on and give us an update next year sometime on the progress. So, but like I said, wish you well for the rest of this year. And thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please share this episode with people within the mining industry, but also people outside of the mining industry. Obviously, potash is needed as a fertilization for our food, and plus many other things. So it does affect everyone around the world. So it's good to share this knowledge amongst people outside of the mining industry. So really appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.